Hey, welcome to video number 248 of Walker This Way with Hazel Walker, the queen of all things.
BNI and networking.
I am Mark Simmons, and it's a new year. It's a new year.
Almost.
Well, by the time everyone else sees this, it will be a new year.
Oh yeah, that's true. By the time everybody
2024. Wow, that was a quick year. Do you have a good Christmas?
I have a brand new great grandbaby.
Congratulations. How many's that now?
I have 3 great grandchildren, and this was the first of the 3, the boy. So we have a great grandson now.
The queen of all things.
People that don't know me. It's 10 grandchildren and 3 great grandchildren.
That's right. The queen of all things, including growing family. So congratulations.
Thanks. It's fun. His name is Ryder.
Ryder. Lots of tradition in your family and innovation happening with new kids coming.
Actually, you'd be surprised how little tradition there actually is.
Is there? Yeah. So Hazel, we talked about a topic for today. And one of the themes, because things come in themes, that's been coming up for the last while in BNI is we have systems in place. BNI is a system. And we also have best practices. And we just came off of, in September, leadership team changeover. And one of the messages we gave to the 700 leadership team members that we were put through the orientation, the training, was that what we're bringing you is best practices, right? It's a BNI best practice. You could choose to do them if you want to make money, which is why you're there as a member, or you could choose not to do them, which probably won't make you money in the end, but you get to choose it. And which is very different, best practices from systems.
Mm-hmm.
So let's have a discussion about what's the difference.
But a best practice is what you have ways to use the system. So the best way to use our system is, these are the best practices. For instance, part of our system is the membership committee, right? And how it operates, doing interviews, conflict resolution, all of those kinds of things. Now, we are constantly innovating that part of the best practices and things. For instance, the membership committees and the vice president used to track everything on paper and enter it into the system, right? And the best practice was for them to have a spreadsheet and write it all down throughout the meeting as things were going along and tallying things up, and then enter all of that into the database.
It was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, especially if you had a chapter with 60 people.
Yeah.
And you're tracking all the different things. It was a lot of work for the vice president. We still have that system of all of that tracking, but we have changed the best practices on that, right? So now, one of the things we innovated was that app, right? So the best practice now is to get your members to enter their data so that the vice president doesn't have to enter the data anymore. The system still tracks the data. It's just a different way of tracking, right? So we innovated with the app to help offload the work of the vice president. But it fails if you don't use the best practices, and we're constantly changing the best practices, right? Our form letters, it used to be they had to handwrite those letters, but now we have them in templates that they can just download and fill out and send in. It used to be they had to send all the attendance letters out, and the best practice was to pick up the phone and call the first time, and then to write out and send out the first letter and the second letter and the third letter. But that's not our best practice anymore, because we innovated a new way of doing it by sending it automatically. The system reads it and sends it out automatically. So innovation changes best practices, but the system hasn't changed. Like, the system is the whole thing. We've just had innovations that have changed our best practices. And that's always you have to have that all the time, right? You don't have to change. The whole system doesn't get changed. Pieces and parts of it get innovated, and the best practices for using that gets changed. And where it goes wrong is when members will buy, so people will come to BNI and they'll buy into BNI because they really love that it's got a system, right? There's a system for accountability, there's a system for tracking, there's a system for every part of it, right? And that system does those, we do the innovation and the best practices, it shifts and changes all the time, but the true system is still the true system, the attendance and all of that. Members will often get in, because I know you did it and I did it. We are those members who join, but then automatically feel like we can change the system.
Right.
Right? We can change the system. Well, the system is 3 absences, and upon your 4th absence, you're probation or open category, right?
Yeah.
That is a key component to the system. That little cog makes the system work better than any other organization that makes the system work. What was the very first thing I changed?
Oh my gosh, you changed a lot. What do you tell me?
I changed the attendance policy in our chapter when I was president.
Yeah.
I decided we needed more.
I changed the agenda because I thought it was boring.
You changed
when I was president. Yeah.
Right. So those are cogs in the system that are major. You can't take those cogs out or change them.
Right.
All we could do to make the attendance better was to be better at letting people know that, hey, you've missed a meeting. And the substitute policy, helped with all of that. So innovation's always going to innovate the system, but it's never really completely changes the system.
Yeah, and I think in BNI specifically, not all members, not all of you understand the whys of the system, like the why of the agenda, which is important. So for me, when I did change the agenda in my chapter and members who built the chapter started leaving, visitors wouldn't join, and then I learned about the why the agenda is the way it is and went back to it and just ran it and slept at night because I didn't have to worry about it. The chapter started to grow. So there's a method to the madness, if you will.
So the same thing happened with me when I changed the attendance policy. Well, guess what? We just became a coffee clutch. Some people were there, some people weren't there. The chapter got smaller and smaller because the people who actually bought the system and who expected that, I bought this car for this reason, and now you're telling me it's not even there. You've changed it. I don't want this car anymore. This car is not for me because that's not the why I bought it. Right. So they walked away. And it wasn't until we put that attendance policy back in place and really began sticking to it that the chapter then began to grow again. The moment we destroy any part of the system, and if you think about it, attendance is key. Our code of ethics is key. Our core values are key. Our
policies
are key. And they've been recently updated.
Yeah, there used to be a lot. Now there's not a lot anymore.
21 to 12.
Right.
Because they realized some of that 21 was actually part of the process. They weren't really policies. Right? But those policies are key. 1 person per profession, 1 profession per person. Start letting in 5 real estate agents into your chapter all doing the same thing, and you're going to have a problem because you're not BNI anymore. That 1 person per category exclusivity is a key component to the system and cannot be changed because then the system crash and burns. Take away attendance, it crash and burns. Take away the policies, it will crash and burn. All we're doing at leadership team is teaching the best practice to run the system smoothly.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Run the system smoothly. Best practices will do that. And sometimes innovation is part of that best practice.
Yeah, definitely. And you were talking earlier, the innovation over the last few years was the innovation of online chapters and Zoom and all that. Some chapters are doing what we call hybrid, 1 or 2 meetings a month in person, the rest on Zoom. And so many of them want to go back to tradition for BNI, which is...
Well, it cracks me up that we have one chapter called Disruption who immediately wanted to go back to tradition. because tradition worked for them better.
Yeah.
When they had the tradition of a BNI chapter.
which is
They
fully
just
in
called
person.
themselves disruption in the way that we launched them. Right? They disrupted our launch process a bit. And so that was fine because the launch process can be disrupted. We find new and better ways all the time, but they didn't necessarily like the innovation of online chapters and hybrid chapters. They really wanted to stick to the traditional meeting. So it's a beautiful combination. The system works in the tradition and in the innovative way. The system is still working across.
Yes. As long as we're following the system.
As long as we're following this and use your best practice to make that system run smoother and easier all the time.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So hopefully this was great information. We have a lot of Walk With This Way videos where we talk about, just stick to the system. You'll sleep at night and don't change things. When you change things, this is when you make no money. Chapters will not make money if you change the system.
Well, you take on a second job at that point because now you're trying to make it all work. Yeah.
Stick to it. You don't have to like all parts to it, but as a package, it's just like a Christmas gift. It kind of works. It just kind of works.
It just works. If you don't stick to that basic part of that system has to be intact all the time.
Absolutely. All right, Hazel. Happy New Year.
You too.
Till next time.
See you then.
Bye.